The afternoon sun burned over the dusty courtyard. Small shadows of alien children danced across the ground as they ran, chasing a bright red ball. Their voices were full of laughter and cheers. The sound carried through the settlement like a song of joy, but to one girl sitting far away, it was a song she could never join. She sat on an old wooden bench near the fence. Her dress was plain and faded, patched in more than one place. Where her right leg should have been, there was only empty space. The end of the dress pinned and folded neatly to hide the missing limb. Her hands clutched the wooden fence, fingers curling around the rough edges as she leaned forward, watching the game. Her name was Lyra. She had not run for years. Once, she had been as quick as the wind, faster than the other children. She had been the one who could kick the ball so high that it almost touched the roofs. But that was before the accident no one liked to speak about. Now, she only watched. She could feel the dry dust in the air, smell the sweat and earth from the children's running feet, hear the thump of the ball every time it hit the ground. She imagined what it would feel like to run again, to hear the rush of wind in her ears, to feel the ground under her feet. But it was only a dream, and dreams were cruel things when you could not make them real. A small group of mothers stood nearby, talking and laughing, their eyes on their own children. No one looked at Lyra. Sometimes one of the younger children would glance her way, curious, but their parents quickly called them back to the game. She was not part of their world anymore. Lyra had learned to keep her face calm, but inside her chest, her heart ached. Every cheer from the game felt like a reminder of what she had lost. Still, she could not turn away. Even if it hurt, she wanted to see it, to be near the sound of joy. Even if she could not be inside it, the ball bounced too hard against the ground and rolled toward the fence. It stopped just a few feet from her bench. For a moment the game paused. The children waited for her to pick it up and toss it back, but she did not move. She could reach it easily, but her hands stayed on the fence. She wanted to hold it, feel it, but she knew the moment she threw it back, they would run away again without a second thought. One boy, taller than the rest, jogged over to grab the ball. He didn't say a word to her. His eyes didn't meet hers. He just picked it up, turned, and ran back to the game. It was as if she was invisible. Lyra leaned back against the fence, her eyes on the dust rising under their feet. She told herself she was used to it. She told herself it didn't matter. But a part of her still wished someone would ask her to join, even just to stand with them. She would have said yes, even if she could only watch from up close. Her gaze drifted beyond the courtyard to the road that led into the settlement. A small figure was walking there, not alien, but human. She could tell from the way he moved, the shape of his body, and the strange shine of his clothes under the sun. Humans were rare here. They came sometimes for trade or work, but they did not stay long. The settlement was too far from the big cities, too quiet for their kind. The man walked with steady steps, his boots kicking up small clouds of dust. He carried a bag slung over one shoulder, the strap cutting across his chest. His eyes scanned the settlement, and for a brief moment, they met hers. She looked away quickly, her heart giving a strange jump. She expected him to pass without a word, like everyone else did, but he slowed. His steps grew lighter as he turned toward the fence. Lyra sat still, unsure what to do. The children kept playing, their laughter filling the air, not noticing the stranger. The man stopped just a few feet away from her bench. "You're not playing?" he asked, his voice calm, not pitying. She blinked, surprised. No one had asked her that in years. She shook her head. "I can't," she said quietly. Her voice almost lost in the noise of the game. His gaze dropped for a moment, noticing the empty space where her legs should have been. But instead of looking away in discomfort, he nodded slowly, as if he had expected it. "What's your name?" he asked. She hesitated, then said Lyra. He smiled slightly. "Lyra," he repeated, as if testing the sound. The sound of his voice was different from the others here, stronger but warm. She could not explain why, but she wanted him to stay. Still, she told herself not to hope. People often asked questions out of politeness before walking away, but Cain didn't leave. He glanced at the ball rolling across the yard, then back at her. His eyes seemed to search hers, as if he was trying to see something beyond the surface. And for the first time in years, Lyra felt like someone wasn't just looking at her, they were seeing her. Cain did not look away from Lyra. Most strangers gave her a single glance, then let their eyes slide past as if she were part of the fence or the dust. But this human stood there, his shadow falling across her lap, blocking the glare of the sun. "You like watching them play?" he asked, nodding toward the children chasing the ball. Lyra's hands tightened on the bench. She wanted to say yes, but the words stuck in her throat. Instead, she gave a small shrug. "It doesn't matter," she said. Cain tilted his head slightly, studying her. "It matters if it matters to you." She didn't know what to say. No one had ever spoken to her like that, like her feelings counted for something. He stepped closer, resting one hand on the fence rail. The wood creaked under his weight. Up close, she could see faint scars along his jaw, the dust clinging to his dark hair, the faint smell of oil and metal from his clothes. This was not a man passing through for pleasure. This was someone who worked with his hands, someone who had seen hard roads. "Why don't you play?" Cain asked again, his tone curious, not accusing. Lyra lowered her eyes to the dry earth under her feet. "I can't run," she said softly. She lifted the hem of her dress slightly, enough for him to see the wooden support strapped to what was left of her leg, an old, crude crutch that didn't even reach the ground properly. "This is all I have." Cain crouched, so his eyes were level with hers. "Does it hurt?" She shook her head. "Not anymore. Just doesn't work. Like a real leg. I can walk a little, but I fall if I go too fast." He nodded slowly, as if he understood more than she was saying. "If you could run again, would you?" The question hung in the air like a spark waiting to catch fire. Her heart gave a small, painful leap. She had asked herself this so many times in her dreams, but hearing it from someone else, from him, felt different. "Yes," she whispered, almost afraid to admit it. "I would." Cain's eyes didn't leave hers. "Then maybe we should do something about that." Lyra blinked at him, unsure if she had heard right. "What do you mean?" He gave a faint smile, but there was something serious in his gaze. I've built things before. Things that help people move when they can't. Not perfect, not pretty, but better than sitting on the sidelines." She stared at him. Was he joking? Was this some kind of cruel tease? No one offered such things here. Not for free. Not for someone like her. The sound of the ball hitting the fence pulled her attention for a moment. A few children glanced at Cain, their eyes wide. They weren't used to seeing a human this close, especially one talking to Lyra. Whispers rippled through the group before they ran back to their game. When she looked back, Cain was still there. He reached into his bag and pulled out a small metal part, no bigger than her hand, shaped like a curved joint. "This is a piece of something I was working on before I came here," he said. "If I can find the rest of what I need, I could make it fit you." Lyra's breath caught. She didn't know whether to believe him, but her chest felt strangely lighter, as if a locked door had cracked open. "Why would you help me?" Cain's answer was simple. "Because someone once helped me when I thought I couldn't get back up. And I've been looking for a way to repay that ever since." For a moment, she didn't speak. The wind stirred the dust at their feet, and the sound of laughter carried from the far side of the yard. Somewhere deep inside, something warm began to grow. A fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, this human wasn't lying. Cain stood and adjusted the strap of his bag. "I'll be back tomorrow," he said. "Don't go anywhere." And then, without waiting for her reply, he turned and walked toward the road out of the settlement. Lyra watched him until the heat shimmer swallowed his figure, her heart still pounding with the weight of his words. The next morning, Lyra woke to the sound of rain tapping softly on the roof. It was rare in the dry season, but she hardly noticed the weather. Her thoughts were still tangled with the memory of the human's voice. If you could run again, would you? No one had ever asked her that. People only asked if she needed food or if she was in pain. They spoke to her like someone broken who should be kept comfortable. It's not like someone who could change her life. She had half expected him to be gone, like every other traveler who came through the settlement. Humans were like the wind here. They passed quickly and never looked back. But when the rain slowed, she heard heavy boots on the wet dirt outside. Her heart gave a strange leap. She moved to the small window of her family's hut and peered out. Kane was back. He stood under the overhang, drops of water clinging to his hair. His bag looked heavier than before. He glanced up at the sky, then toward the courtyard, where the game from yesterday had already started again. The children didn't seem to care about the mud. They splashed through puddles, laughing. Kane's eyes moved past them, searching. They stopped when they found her. "You're up," he said, as if they had agreed to meet. She stepped outside, the damp earth cool under her bare foot. "You came back," she said softly. "I said I would." His voice was calm, but there was a faint edge to it, like a man who kept his word no matter the cost. He reached into his bag and pulled out something long and wrapped in cloth. With careful hands, he unrolled it. Metal gleamed in the dull morning. Light, smooth-jointed pieces, connected with straps and small gears. Lyra stared. It wasn't like the crude wooden crutch she used. This looked alive somehow, as if it could move with her instead of holding her back. "I told you I've built things," Kane said.
"Oh."
"This isn't finished yet, but it's close. If it fits, I can make it yours." Her voice trembled. "Why me?" Kane looked at her for a long moment before answering. "Because everyone else seems fine watching you sit on that bench, I'm not." The words hit harder than she expected. She wanted to believe him, but years of being ignored had taught her that kindness often came with a price. "What do you want in return?" she asked carefully. "Nothing," he said simply. Then, after a pause, "Just promise me one thing. If I give you this leg, you'll use it. Not just to walk, but to live, run, play, do what they think you can't." Lyra's hands curled into fists at her sides. She thought of the fence, the dust, the way the ball had rolled toward her. Yesterday and how she hadn't touched it. She thought of the boy who hadn't even looked at her. "I promise," she said, her voice stronger than she felt. Kane nodded once. "Good, then let's get to work." They moved toward the old workshop on the edge of the settlement, a place no one used anymore, its door hanging crooked, its walls lined with forgotten tools. The air inside smelled of oil and rust. Kane set his bag on the work table, the sound of metal parts clinking together, echoing in the stillness. Lyra stood in the doorway, watching him. For the first time in years, she felt like something was about to change, and this time wasn't just a dream. The workshop was silent, except for the creak of the old door as Kane pushed it open. Dust floated in the thin rays of light slipping through the broken roof. Every step made the floor groan under their weight. Lyra stopped at the threshold. This place had always been a shadow in her mind, a forgotten building no one entered. The walls were lined with shelves sagging under rusted tools, tangled wires, and scraps of metal. The smell of oil and old wood clung to the air. Kane didn't seem to notice the decay. He moved like a man who had worked in worse places, setting his bag down on a long table that still stood solid despite the years. "This will do," he said. She stepped inside slowly, her bare foot brushing against curled shavings of metal on the floor. "Do for what?" "For giving you back your leg," he replied, unrolling the cloth bundle he had shown her earlier. The pieces gleamed even in the weak light, curved metal shaped like bone, hinges where a knee should bend, leather straps soft but strong. It didn't look like a part of a machine. It looked like something that belonged to her. Kane pulled out a small box and flipped it open. Inside lay tiny screws, thin rods, and strange tools she didn't recognize. "It here," he said, pointing to a tall stool. Lyra hesitated.
"Ow."
Her old wooden crutch scraped against the floor as she crossed to the stool.
"Ow."
The seat was cold under her hands as she climbed up, awkwardly balancing on her single leg. Kane knelt in front of her, his face level with the place where her right leg should have been. She tensed. But his hands were steady and gentle as he unfastened the straps of her crutch. The moment it was gone, she felt lighter but unsteady, like she might tip over. "Hold on to the table," he said without looking up. He began fitting the metal pieces against her skin. The sound of tiny tools clicking echoed softly in the room. She could feel the cool weight of the prosthetic, the careful way he adjusted the straps so they wouldn't bite into her flesh. "You built this?" she asked quietly, "from scraps?" "And what I could carry," he answered. "It's not perfect, but it will move with you, not against you." The smell of warm metal filled the air as he tightened the last bolt. A faint spark flashed from his small hand tool, and for a heartbeat, the light danced across his face. "All right," Kane said, standing. "Try to stand." Her stomach nodded. She gripped the edge of the table and slid off the stool. The moment her new leg touched the floor, she froze. It felt strange, heavier than her crutch, but solid. Like the ground finally had something to push back against. She took a slow breath. Then, with Kane's hand hovering near her shoulder, she straightened. Her back, for the first time in years, she was standing on two legs. Her eyes widened. Her chest felt tight. She didn't dare move, afraid the moment would break. Kane's voice was quiet but firm. "This is just the start, Lyra. Soon you won't just stand, you'll run." The words sank deep into her, and for the first time in as long as she could remember, she believed they might be true. Lyra's fingers were white from gripping the table. The workshop felt too quiet now. Only the faint tick of Kane's tools cooling on the table broke the silence. Her new leg was heavy but balanced, strange but promising. Kane stepped back. Just far enough to give her space, but stayed close enough to catch her if she fell. "You ready?" he asked. Her mouth felt dry. She gave a small nod. "Then let's move," he said. She loosened her grip on the table and shifted her weight. The first motion was awkward. Her left foot knew what to do, but the right, the new one, hesitated like it was unsure it belonged to her. "Don't fight it." Kane's voice was calm. "Trust it." She tried again, lifting her left foot, letting the new leg take her weight. Sharp rush of fear hit her chest. For one terrifying second, she thought she would fall, but the leg held firm. Her heart pounded. She took another step. This time, the hinge at the knee moved smoothly, the sole pressing into the floor with a satisfying steadiness. "That's it," Kane said, a faint smile tugging at his lips. The sound of laughter drifted in from outside. The children were still playing ball in the courtyard? Lyra froze mid-step. The idea of walking out there, of letting them see her, made her stomach twist. Kane noticed. "They'll stare," he said plainly. "Let them, and show them why they can't look away." Something inside her shifted. She tightened her jaw and took another step, then another. Each movement felt more natural than the last, her body adjusting to the rhythm of two legs again. Kane walked toward the workshop door and held it open. Sunlight spilled across the dusty floor. "Come on," he said. Lyra hesitated, the brightness making her squint. Beyond that doorway was the fence, the courtyard, the game she had only ever watched. Her pulse raced, but she had promised him and herself. She stepped forward into the light. The children stopped mid-game, the ball bouncing away and rolling into a puddle. All eyes turned to her. She felt the heat of their stares, the unspoken questions hanging in the air. Lyra took another step, her new leg catching the light. Then she met the eyes of the tallest boy, the one who had ignored her the day before, and kept walking until she stood in the middle of the yard. Kane's voice carried just enough for her to hear. "Your move, Lyra." She bent down, picked up the ball, and held it under her arm. Her hands trembled, but not from fear anymore. The ball felt strange in her hands. Warmer than she expected, as if it had been waiting for her all this time. The children stood frozen, their laughter gone, replaced by silent curiosity. Some leaned forward as if they were afraid to miss what might happen next. Kane stood off to the side, his arms folded, his eyes locked on her. Didn't shout instructions. Didn't push her. He just waited. Lyra set the ball down at her feet. The ground was still damp from the morning rain. The mud soft under her bare toes on one side, and the smooth metal of her prosthetic on the other. She could feel her heart beat in her ears. She took one breath, then nudged the ball forward. The first kick was light, cautious, but the leg moved with her, its joint bending just right. The ball rolled a short distance, and without thinking, she chased it. Her body leaned into the motion, her foot hitting the ground in a steady rhythm, left, right, left. Right, the sound of 2 steps instead of 1 and a drag. She kicked again, harder this time. The ball bounced forward, splashing. Through a shallow puddle, droplets catching the sunlight. A ripple of sound moved through the children, a mix of surprise and excitement. Lyra's chest burned, but she didn't stop. Her prosthetic leg moved smoother now, the metal catching the light with every step. The awkward stiffness was fading, replaced by something she hadn't felt in years. Freedom. One of the younger children suddenly darted forward to challenge her. She swerved, the ball still under her control. And the move felt natural, instinctive, like the years without running had never happened. A laugh burst from her lips, sharp and bright. More children joined, trying to take the ball. She passed it between her feet, kicked it away from their reach, and ran harder. The mud splashed against her legs, and her hair whipped behind her. For the first time, she wasn't the girl sitting by the fence. She was part of the game. Kane watched, his faint smile growing with every step she took. The metal he had shaped was doing exactly what he had promised. But it wasn't just the leg. It was her will, her fire, coming back to life in front of everyone. When she finally scored, sending the ball skidding between 2 makeshift goalposts, the yard erupted. The other children cheered and swarmed her, their earlier silence replaced with shouts of her name. Lyra stood there, breathless, grinning in a way she hadn't since before the accident. Her prosthetic was muddy, her dress was splattered, but she didn't care. She had run, really run, and nothing could take that away from her again. From across the yard, Kane caught her eye and gave a small nod, as if to say, "Told you so." The sun was sinking low, painting the courtyard in gold and amber. The game had ended long ago, but Lyra still sat on the fence, not in her usual spot of quiet watching, but surrounded by children who now called her name with laughter in their voices. Her prosthetic leg was covered in mud, the straps damp, but she didn't care. Every ache in her muscles felt like proof that she was alive again. Kane leaned against a nearby wall, his arms crossed, watching her without interrupting. His eyes were calm, but there was a quiet pride in the way he studied her, as if seeing her. Run had been worth every step of his journey to this place. When the children finally drifted away, Lyra stayed where she was, kicking her heel lightly against the fence post, testing the strength of her new leg again and again, as if she still couldn't quite believe it was real. She looked over at Kane. "I don't know how to thank you," she said, her voice soft but steady. He pushed off the wall and walked toward her. "You already did," he replied. She frowned lightly. When you took that first step," he said. "When you didn't stop running. That's all I wanted, to see you live again, not just survive." Lyra's chest tightened, but it wasn't the ache of loss anymore. It was something warm, spreading through her like sunlight. She glanced at the ball lying in the corner of the yard, then back at Kane. "Do you think I could get even faster?" His smile deepened. "I think this is just the beginning." They stood there for a moment, the quiet of the evening wrapping around them. Somewhere in the distance, the sound of laughter still echoed from the village. Lyra tapped her new leg against the ground, feeling its solid weight, and knew one thing for certain: Kane hadn't just given her a way to walk. He had given her back her place in the world, and she was never going back to that bench again.